Okay, so good morning everyone and welcome to this very special panel titled From Aisle 1 to Aisle 8 and Beyond. And as you can easily imagine, as the title suggests, the aim of this panel is to build a kind of, let's say, narrative arc or story arc as we celebrate the 8th edition of the Aisle Conference. So we will be looking back, but we will also be taking stock of the present and also imagining in some way the future. So in other words, what we will do during the panel is, what we want to do during the panel is to take a moment to reflect on how far Aisle has gone, what it has achieved, and also where we are headed for the near future, for the years to come. So joining us on this panel are 5 of the 10 presidents of our society that our society has had since its inception, so from the very beginning. So together, the 5 of them represent 50% of the society's presidential leadership over the years. So it is a remarkable gathering of people who know a lot of things about the past of Aisle, about the present of Aisle, and about the future of Aisle. So we are honored to have with us today, just on the very left-hand side of the panel, Mair, who was president of Aisle between 2011 and 2014. Then we have Corrigan, president of our society between 2021 and 2023. On my left-hand side, Bernd Kortmann, 2023-2025. So he's finishing his term now. To my right, María Kytö, president from now on, 2025 to 2027. And finally, Sali Tagliamonte, who is the new president-elect of Aisle. Her term will start 2027 to 2029. So a very nice bunch of people, good friends and colleagues, but the people who know most about Aisle, and we're happy to have them all here today. So our discussion, our conversation will move along 2 pathways. So first, we are going to have a look back, so at the origins of Aisle, its milestones, and also the lessons that we have learned along the way. And also, the second path is to look ahead, okay, at the challenges we face today, but also the opportunities which are before us, and the aspirations also that we share for the future of Aisle beyond this edition, Aisle 8. So let's start with the first section of the panel, which focuses, as I said, on the founding vision of Aisle, its key milestones and its major early challenges. But as we prepare to hear our 5 panelists, and before we, let's say, dive into the discussion, I would like to rewind to where everything started, okay, where all began, and see only the first 2 minutes from a video which contains some of the highlights from the very first edition of the Conference of Aisle, Aisle 1 in Freiburg back in 2008. So let's see this snippet from the video.
What a fantastic idea Aisle is.
I'm very impressed by the core areas of the conference. I mean, it really is a kind of mouth-watering menu that we have in front of us.
I think one of the things that I've enjoyed at this conference is going to hear the kinds of papers that very often when I go to the LSA, I often don't hear.
For me, this has been, to a certain extent, sort of 0 walks down memory lane here.
And we're making history in a much bigger splash than I think anybody anticipated, which has produced a great deal more work for the organizers than they ever imagined.
Und ich danke auch alle Mitarbeiter für die exzellente Organisation dieser Tagung.
Remember this first Aisle Conference as one of utmost academic enrichment and personal well-being.
A truly great conference.
Isle, it seems to me, is a perfect place to provide some order, but not, I suspect, any end.
Okay, so for obvious time constraints, this is just, let's say, a teaser of the highlights, but there is much more to discover. Just let me remind you that the whole video is available on our YouTube channel, and I would encourage you to watch it when you have the chance. So let's now turn to the panel. So my first set of questions is the following, and I would ask our panelists to keep the responses to about 10 minutes, 2 minutes each, okay, not 10 minutes, too much. We have much more in the conference program. You don't need to answer all the 3 questions, so just choose whatever you want for your 2 minutes answer. So the first question is, what inspired the founding of ISLE, and what were the initial goals of the society? And for those of you who attended ISLE 1, probably not all of you were there, but those of you who were there, what are your most vivid memories of the conference, and which expectations did you have at that time? And the third question is, what do you think are the major achievements of ISLE 1 in these 17 years of history? So probably we can start with Christian as the oldest of our presidents here in the panel.
And, thank you, and I would have to add as one of 2 co-organizers. So I guess Elisabeth Traugott had a vision. Bernd and I had a little chat years ahead of 2008, and we thought in the then current spirit of native speakerism, deference to native speakers, that an obvious venue would be the US or the UK, and we would be ISLE 2, but then it turned out that there wasn't exactly a rush among American and British colleagues to stage ISLE 1, and it fell on us rather unexpectedly, and then the work started. One more brief sentence. Why ISLE? Elizabeth's vision was of a broad church. There were plenty of dedicated special issues, special purpose societies. I came, mostly corpora, IAWE, IAWE, mostly World Englishes, ICEHL, International English, Historical Linguistics, etc. One forum, common ground for everybody, large and international. That was the idea we had in mind, and at the time, when I was in a pessimistic mood, I would never have expected that I would ever be sitting at an ISLE 8. In my more optimistic mood, I was delusional, and I had the idea that ISLE would be the flagship international English linguistic society beyond them all, but we're not quite there yet, and maybe we don't even want to be there.
So Karen, maybe?
I wasn't there. I was much too young to be at 2008, so I'm going to pass over to Bernd. But I will, if you wish, come back to the what do you think we've achieved question later.
Yes, hello. I think I will just react to the question what I remember best of this conference. I think it was really just a fantastic size and also a fantastic mix of people. We had a brilliant lineup of plenary speakers, and this really continued into the individual workshops. What I also remember very vividly, that we tried to sort of collect some information also from the speakers. So we had short interviews, not only with all plenary speakers, but with most participants, where our master students then had little interview sessions of 20, 30 minutes with some stock questions like, do you still remember what your first conference paper was, and things like this. And I must say, when we actually listened to all of these things, it was a wonderful lineup of things and ideas, and also looks ahead into the future, because we also asked all people, what are your wishes for this society for the future? Unfortunately, this is all gone because the server was killed at some point, and so we don't have that documentation any longer. What I remember otherwise very, very vividly is, of course, that, for instance, in October this year, there will be a young man turning 17, and you actually saw this young man as the last picture on the slide, because we also had a conference baby. So this is one of the things that also, as organizer, you remember, and I'm happy to say the mother is also among us. So there are other very memorable things, but it really fitted very nicely, intellectually, academically, and also personally. And of course, what then I also have to say at the very end, we had a fantastic football match afterwards. I mean, some people were just, I think, marching off to Colmar or something like this and watching and visiting the Alsace. But I think there was a group of 20 males or so who just withdrew and had a wonderful football match. And this is something also, I haven't played very often against Raj Mestri, for instance, and did fight for a ball. So it was really a lot of fun too. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, that's right.
Right, thanks. Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure I attended, but as there have been so many conferences, and 2008 is quite far away, so I just can't say for sure. But at all these IL conferences I've attended, I've always felt like coming at home, because every paper is interesting. Every paper is about English linguistics. So it's difficult to find a conference where you would have that experience. So I think it's just fantastic to think about. It's been going on 17 years. And it started then in Freiburg, right? So I'm just quite perplexed with that discovery. So.
Can I ask how many students are out there in the audience today? Can you put up your hands? Wasn't that a great video? What I got most out of that is hope. All those people were so hopeful, they were so excited, they were starting something new, and here we are. So I think that's a really important place to start from today.
Okay, thank you. Bernd,
maybe I can just add one thing, I mean, because it's also a question about major achievements. Really, you only have to look at the composition of the participants in this conference, for example. This already shows the success of this society, because we have all generations of academics here. We have established people on the way out. We have people in their prime. You have doctoral students. You have postdocs. And this is exactly what you want, okay? And you want to have them in different groups discussing with each other, for the younger ones to network with the older ones or people at the same career level. This society really has worked. And this is why I think this is also a very good expectation that we can have for the future.
So thank you so much for these very first reflections. Any one of you would like to add something else before we move to the second part? Kari? No, it's okay. It's already on. Yeah, perfect.
So I was going to talk a little bit about the challenges. Now, they're not early challenges because they are within recent memory, but I was actually and ended up being the longest serving president-elect because COVID kicked in during the course of my being elected. And I suppose, even though in a way it wasn't an early challenge, it was a time of challenge for everyone. And I suppose what came out as very important to me were two things. First of all, that we were able to pivot as an organization and rethink ourselves into a new domain. I know we all had to do that in a work context, but it was actually very difficult from the point of view of society to be able to do that. And in addition, one of my most life-affirming moments was actually opening the Newcastle Summer School, because it was still COVID times. And we were trying to do it in two ways, both in a hybrid way and also in person, but with masks. So it was a challenge, obviously. You're putting COVID tests into people's bags, as well as directions to restaurants, which had just opened. But I found that both the hybrid part of that summer school and the in-person part of that summer school was incredibly life-affirming and was very hopeful, going back to Sali's point, that in a way the world can throw challenges at us, but we're well able for it.
Thanks, Karen. So we'll now move on to the second part of the discussion, which, as I mentioned at the beginning, will be devoted to the challenges and the opportunities both for the present and for the future of IELTS. So the questions I would like to address to our panelists in this section are the following. Again, don't take all of them together, so just choose whatever you want to answer. So the first one, how has the IELTS community evolved through the years? You have already mentioned something about this in your answers to the first question. The second one is, what role does IELTS play today in the broader academic landscape? And the third is, which are the main challenges of IELTS at the present moment, and which ones do you think IELTS will have to face in the coming decade? And since the questions are a bit broader, well, for this part of the discussion, I invite you to take up to 3 minutes if you want to share your perspective, not more than that, okay? So, Sali, would you like to start? Talking about the future.
Okay, well, we're all in higher education, and we know that higher education is going through a few challenges today. So I think one of the biggest challenges for any academic organization is to have a common front, and most importantly, to stay the course. And we stand behind values in all of our institutions, and all of your institutions, where we put a lot of emphasis on evidence-based research and the central role that universities can play in the world today, in part for their educational aspirations and abilities, and all of us in our own small way can do something about that, but also in our ability at an institute of higher education to promote diversity and encourage dialogue, and to stay the course with our integrity and our ability to do research. I think that's our challenge, but it's also important to stand firm and stay the course. That's my motto. Never matters what's going on in the world, stay the course.
So, Chris.
I hope is it on? Okay, great. I would like to build on what Sali said and make it more concrete and specific and say we are international. We are, I mentioned native speakerism. Non-native speakers have a voice at IELTS, and if anything, the native speaker voice could be strengthened. But then there are many other voices which in our kind of internationality are not represented, and given our topic, World Englishes, I think there is still a lot of work to do with regard to giving a voice to linguists working on English coming from ESL communities. If I've counted right, we have got one participant from the Caribbean. We've got only a handful of participants coming from Africa. And this has been a point that has been discussed in the past, and it will have to be worked on in future. And I would say that is one aspect of diversity, which when our object of study is the global English language, we need to think about. Represent the communities through representing linguists working on the communities. And this is not just because they have a right to do that. It is also because we dictate the research agenda. Associations such as ours help shape the research agenda, and the place, your positionality as a researcher, the place you do your work in, shapes your research agenda, and we should reflect on these issues in future.
And I would like to add to that it was during my presidency that we developed an EDI statement for the summer school, and then subsequently an EDI statement for the society more broadly. But at the end of the day, a statement is just a statement. It's aspirational. And it's what goes behind that and the effort that then goes into making those changes so that there is a much more inclusive body of people who are represented and who represent what it is that we do and that we want to bring, not just to academia, but to society more broadly. Because I also think that that's part of our mission.
Yes, indeed. There is still a little bit of this tension between English seen as a medium of communication and not as an object of study. So an association like ILE is a great tool when you have to argue with admin people and other like funding agencies about the need to raise money for a conference or a summer school or advance doctoral students' possibilities to attend international conferences. So it has to do with this connection to society overall and this very odd approach that everybody knows English. Why should anybody study it? So I think I stop there.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, when we look ahead, then I think I've had my time to share my ideas with you, so this is why I don't want to take away any more minutes from the other members on the panel and from the question time. But perhaps very briefly, I think what the society has done successfully and needs to continue to do is to offer things that make it valuable to become a member of the society. I think we've already been very good over the past 17 years, for instance, to offer many things as a support to early career researchers. Our summer schools, I think, are really well attended, have interesting topics, and I think this is really one asset that we have, but also the fact that over the last 2 years we introduced more prizes, for instance, that also clearly signal how important to us teaching is and how important for us public outreach is. This is also something I think that is important, and that we also offer our website to all our members in order to make public what are the kinds of recent achievements that you have had with regard to talking to the public, publishing podcasts, etc. So we really try to provide a platform, a website that people would go to in order to be inspired, to also learn about best practices. I think this is really something that we have done successfully, and I was also very happy to see that our idea of having online fora where you have, sometimes just one-on-one interviews, but for the most part a setting where you have a moderator plus up to 3 guests, and then you discuss for 90 minutes or up to 90 minutes, typically it's just an hour, certain topics that are really something that matters to all of us. So we would like to create more the sense that ILE is the place to go if you want to learn what's going on, what could be good ideas for myself, what is it that I could discuss with my colleagues at my own university or at our national assemblies that we have among linguists. And if we do this and continue to do this successfully, then I think we will also broaden our membership, because I really think there is much more of a potential than having 350 members. So I think one can really go beyond that. And, but we are working on this. And it's really fun to see how, for instance, these online fora are used for international cross-continental discussions. And this makes us even stronger as a community. And we will hopefully feel this at any of the coming conferences.
Maybe Karin wants to add something about early career research, as I'm sure she will.
Well, I suppose, again, going back to the summer school, I thought it would be an interesting experiment to hold sessions not just with an academic orientation, but I did two things which were different, one of which was begin a mentoring program during the course of the week, where you could basically dial up an old person and they would talk to you about your project, give you advice. And what I am really pleased to hear is that so many of those conversations have continued long beyond 2022, when that summer school started with that idea. The other kind of issue I had was, yes, we're always being encouraged to do good for the public. We're being encouraged to make our work relevant for the public. But actually, we don't really do much in the way of training as to how you do that. And we're actually very lucky in Newcastle because we have a lot of experience and expertise in that area. So our students on the summer school, for example, got to experience what we at Newcastle call the digital kitchen, where you, in effect, go into a kitchen and you're approached in a language which is not your own, and you're asked to develop a dish, create a recipe. And we use that digital kitchen for migrants who've just arrived in Newcastle as a way of trying to encourage them to not only learn English, but also share their language with our students, for example. And I don't know if Rebecca is around. Maybe she's, yes. So Rebecca worked in the digital kitchen and, in a sense, I suppose, got the experience of what it might be like to bring some actual benefit to the real world, a kind of real world English linguistics. And I think we need to continue to do that because we have to make ourselves relevant. And again, going back to Maria's point about funding and about trying to, in a way, help ordinary people understand what it is that we do. And we are really lucky as a discipline in that people are fascinated by language. They're fascinated by dialect. So in a way, we already have an in there. It's not like we're astrophysicists trying to look at a particular star, which can be quite hard to explain. People already know a lot about language because they live language every day in their everyday communication. So.
Anyone who wants to have time for a second round, if you want to add anything, Sali? Later, we have the list. Anything else or about this second round of questions? Maria? No? So to close this part of the discussion, so we'll finish with a kind of quick fire round, okay? So I'll ask one final question, and each of you will have about 1 minute to share your key thoughts on that. So you can think of it as a kind of, let's say, headline takeaway, right? So and the question is, how do you envision IEL in another 10 years or in another 17 years? Okay. Karin?
What I would like is that we hold on to what works, what is part of our tradition, but that we never lose sight of the fact that we need to move. We need to move with the times, we need to be agile, and we need to pivot towards other things when we see the writing on the wall.
Chris?
I would like to see an isle that has 2 or 3 times the number of members that it has now, but I've given up the delusional dream of the biggest linguistic society in the world. I don't want Isle to be another Isla. I would like us to have a web page that every person interested in English linguistics has a need to go to at least once a week, because it offers so much valuable stuff and information. And I would like us to talk about, to have so many members from Africa and South Asia, etc., so that we can talk about reduced rates for this type of demographic. So that's my dream.
I have nothing really to add to this. With regard to the field of English linguistics, I would simply say that we should also really join forces even more strongly with applied English linguistics. This is also what David Crystal was more or less talking about in his first plenary at IL1. And as I said, that we also try to become relevant also in interacting with people who work on artificial intelligence, etc. But otherwise, I think we are doing all the right things already, and we just need to remain open. And I would only hope that in 10 years' time, the conferences that we will have perhaps even twice as many participants.
Well, I don't have much to add to that, but maybe some kind of development of the online meeting series, where we could have a bigger annual meeting online and collect some research which will help people then navigate towards the next conference. So some kind of integration of the years between conferences and summer schools would be great.
Well, what I don't want to see are people giving talks with AI. But what I really would love to see is more engagement of our technical skills with places in the world that intersect with our field, so that we're not just talking about research in academic institutions, but we're talking about research that really provides good, solid promotion for society as well. Maybe places where we can use our skills for digital humanities, for law, for social justice. Maybe in Google and Microsoft, maybe we can do something there too. And more collaboration across the world with colleagues that work on the same thing but in very different ecologies. Maybe we'll learn more about the linguistics of English by talking to people across borders. So that's my vision.
Okay, thank you so much. Anything you would like to add before we come to the final part of the panel? Yeah. So thank you so much for keeping to the time, because this allows us to have plenty of time for questions and comments from the audience.